Hello guys, let me first start with wishing you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thanking you very much for supporting this channel and making this purchase, and I hope you're going to consider this in the future. This reading is going to consist of two parts. First part, important one though, even though it seems to be kind of like a little bit generic. Why is it important? They're general energies. So what does that mean? So let's say we want what we want, right? Let's say we want to buy tiles for the bathroom. So we know what we want to buy, we know our budget and everything else. So we kind of like know our little domain. But there is like a bigger picture. Who is the supplier? What can be done? So you have to work within that system. And this is like what this part is going to tell us. I also drew a rune just to give me basically some kind of like feel for it, and we are going to go in few other cards. These like really important decks. This is Osho Zen. He's like a famous I believe Japanese philosopher. We have karma cards and we have law of attraction. So for example, right, if you for example want to win lottery and you want to send those vibrations out and you have all the negative people around you, that's what's going to tell you. So literally all you would need to do is like stay away from that kind of like stuff, right? So the rune that we got was Vunya reversed. Vunya is a really good rune, even when it's reversed. So this is the rune of happy endings. We are coming into the basically cycle numerologically year number 12, which is basically cycle number 3 numerologically. I'm going to speak a little bit about that later, because oh my gosh, like year number basically 11 is tough. Year number 11 is challenging us on every single thing, and mostly on the things that actually we don't really want to be challenged. So that's something really to take in account. So this is talking about kind influence. This is talking about, hey, look, things are actually going to turn out well, right? It's encouraging rune, but when it's reversed, it kind of gives a little bit of kind of like caution that, for example, in terms of love relationship, maybe we are going to idolize someone. You know what? I say, heck, you know, why not? Usually we are so, I don't know if I want to say jaded. Like, I mean, there are like all kinds of people out there, right? And we are like, oh no, not again, right? So going on the other side, it's probably better, right? But this is also kind of like telling you, put it in perspective. Maybe somebody is looking too good to be true, and that's because he or she is too good to be true. So keep that in mind, because that person might be kind of like a little bit different from what they see. This is like entire year. They are not going to be able to put up the game for a year, especially if you see them on a regular basis. So I am really not worried about that. Also, another thing, if this is referring to business, then it's going to be danger of underhanded dealings, and even those who you consider friends might actually turn on you, and you might not count on them. So again, put that in account when you are making decisions that are including that other people. Now, what I would say with this particular rune, as it kind of like relates for the year number 3, that I would say make sure that at least you give yourself 3 days for kind of like really coming up with an answer. Sort of like, you know, not really mulling it over in these 3 days what to do. Sort of like when you have to reach a decision, put it on a back burner, 3 days on a back burner. When you come back in 3 days, then start deliberating what you want to do. So it's still very good, and this is that protection. Like P is for Vunya. I have my own names. P to me is for protection, and specifically when it comes here, because look, it's kind of like pointing backwards, right? So again, over idolizing means, hey, you know, I have all these friends, you know. I mean, I felt that way when I was moving, and then when the time came, like, I mean, everybody promised, and then one phone call after another, oh, I have a flu, I have this, I have this. So basically you see really who your real friends are. And this is exactly what it's saying. That date could be a surprise. So kind of like keep that in perspective. Already. So let's see what else we have. Let me just first get all the cards out. Oops, and we already have it. We have fighting. Oh, why do we have fighting thing? So let's, one on the floor. Wow, this is a lovely one. It's called Forgiveness. I love this one. And let's grab this one here. This is just a general energy, as it says something in, oh, this is a really lovely. You know, I'm so excited about this year. Let me zoom this in for you so you can actually have a better view of these guys, and I can kind of like give you a little bit more information. So fighting is probably a good kind of like omen, right? Fighting is like that proverbial knight of swords, which always kind of like can tend to be a little bit edgy, because look, he's like kind of like riveted himself in kind of like some kind of concoction that maybe he cannot even get out. So it almost like appears to me that somebody's like, I mean, so full of steam, the steam is coming out, it's even forming, as you can see here, some kind of like thing here on the side, right? So it is kind of like very important over here. What I really see here is like some kind of like edginess over here. What I really see here, and me being an air sign, I can really tell you how this works. Air sign can be the most easy breezy sign, but it can be tornado, it can be a hurricane, right? So what kind of like chance do you really want to take on this, right? So it is really important when you're dealing with air to kind of like understand that everything here depends on logic. Air is going to say, yeah, I love you, honey, but you are not showing up on time, you are not doing this, you're not doing this, and hence I am leaving you, right? Air is absolutely able to make that kind of stuff. So fire probably would kind of say, okay, well, let's see, let's come up with an action plan how to do that, right? Where, you know, Pentacles would go, okay, so what can you do for me? Like, let's make it more transactional kind of a thing, right? And kind of like water would go, okay, like, I mean, I really feel for you. I'm still going to kind of go and continue with this, right? So it is kind of like talking about an explosive temper and maybe even smoldering rage. And to me, whenever I see people like that, I always know there is pain. And these are strong people. And if you're listening to this, like when you see people who are maybe exploding, you want to do something and you find this like immovable, insurmountable obstacle, these people are conveying some kind of like pain. So when are people getting angry? When their needs are not met. When are people in pain? When their needs are not met. But it's actually even worse when they really feel they will never be met. With anger, like, at least, actually, believe it or not, it's better, because people feel, well, you know, if I do this, like, things are going to be met. So I know it's really hard when you have like something really harsh and edgy coming at you, but maybe you're going to remember my words. The person that you see in front of you raging and having those white knuckles and having all huffing and puffing and maybe being threatening, actually is just like the pussycat in the corner who wants to scratch everything because they're really hurting. So this is why they are showing this kind of like armor over here, because they're covering their wounds with armor. And actually, even though this is preventing, helping them not to get more wounds, it's also preventing them of being healed. So, you know, these people who lash at others, they just like simply prevent themselves of getting love and nourishment they need. If this is like us and getting that kind of stuff, we actually need to realize when we get angry, well, wait a minute, what is it that I have to kind of like let this like steam out? Because hey, love is like out there. Love is like literally something we need to kind of open our arms and get it. And if this is like you, that you find yourself in the situation, just kind of like give yourself a big hug. Ask your friends to give you a hug. It has a very healing thing. Also, another thing that I really tried and that really works, and I tell to my clients, take ballroom dance classes, take salsa lessons, because holding another human and in something that is enjoyable is going to transfer so much good energy. So I really think, given that this is coming for the ambience and environment we are going to find ourselves in it, that this is really talking about that this year is going to be one of the struggle. It's going to be where ambitions will be pushed forward. Many people, especially after year number 11, which is 2, where it's very spiritual, where it's like, really, do I really want to be that kind of person? And here is like, I'm moving forward. So up to this point was like all kind of like those strategizing, but here it is kind of moving forward. So when people move forward, some people try to negotiate and find a deal with others. These are people who are more people oriented. other people try to steamroll through whole thing and kind of like get what they want, right? So you need to understand yourself. So because this is kind of like the general overview, you have to figure out if you really want to be part of something like that. Do you really want something at any cost, or you simply don't want something at every cost, right? Because look what you have over here. You have forgiveness from this other deck, and like to me this is like one of those, the loveliest cards. This is the card that, you know, if you can see, we have like these different chakras over here. So we are already here in this high purple chakra. So your number 11 was all the way here, so we are getting more grounded. So this is again about judging and forgiveness. So even though it could be them being mad, being rude, being crude, I can see cussing and swearing and telling people off and a finger, I can see here a whole bunch of things. How you react to it, it's what your challenge is going to be. Are you going to just like simply engage in their pain and kind of like react back with anger? Or are you going to kind of like neglect yourself and just going to help themselves? You see how many challenges you will actually have there. But look, solution is being offered over here, forgiveness. It's, you know, it's not really about forgiving others in this situation. What I really think that forgiveness has to apply to is that we need to forgive ourselves for having judged others, because judging others always generates kind of like bad brownie points. There's like somebody here maybe who, you know, these people, they're angry with entire world, and my dad is just like it. I get this very, very much. Like whenever everything is perfect, they're still going to find something. We all have those kind of like negative, you know, Sandy, kind of like negative Nancy, kind of like a people around us. So, and of course, maybe sometimes we just like treat these people with a label on it, right? They say if you really want to kind of go higher, not only spiritually, but in your life, you shouldn't kind of like have things with labels. So cat shouldn't have C-A-T kind of like spelled on it. It's a being that kind of is engaging. You see the difference. It's like reading the energy versus reading the label. So here is like basically simply calling, look, you know, understand what is below and behind that armor, that this person is probably, you know, resenting things. And here, like, I mean, we need to kind of like focus on basically intention. What do they really want? And this kind of, imagine if you manage to kind of develop such thick skin that these things are not coming to you, how wonderful would that be? That's why I see this card, but we still didn't get there, right? This also tells me that it may be a time of family healing. I feel that anybody who have hurt you, who have done something, and you know, families have their own histories, especially if there is money involved, or you know, each family has quote unquote their own way. You know, if you watch Game of Thrones, Lancaster always pays his debts, kind of a thing. Story that we see is kind of like over present, but sometimes this is also very limiting, just like this armor. So this also can actually be part of those dynamics. Now, why am I going in such a long intro to tell you this? This is because you guys are on a trajectory of that year number 3, of wishes being fulfilled, of holding on to past dreams. Over the last 2 years, you have been meticulously changing. You have been setting a new path. You have been setting a new direction. You have been also doing lots of bad things, but now you need to forgive yourself. Look, there is like this hypo, and there is like this kind of like baby over here, right? And the story behind here goes, right, that you know, there was like this Rhonda, I think, Rhino, and kind of like she kind of like has a mother. Her mother has like a drinking problem, but she kind of like really wants to become a family pet. And so one day, kind of like she hears, I think, gunfire or something like that, and all the rhinos scatter, and all of a sudden there is like this small human child that is kind of like caught up in the chaos, right? So Rhonda says, come here. She picks him up and runs to safety. So humans now discover this kind of like pair curled up asleep under a tree, and then what they do, they shoot Rhonda with a sleeping dart. So when she awakens, she is in a garden with the little boy and his family. So this is now becoming Rhonda's new family. So as you can see how things can really change. From some aggression and some kind of like struggle and white knuckles, things can actually quite work out quite well. And then we are getting this Temperance card. Well, Temperance in the other decks is really shown as an angel who is able to mix this bad and good, because it almost looks like two opposite sides of the equation, right? This is like all the way in the negative, this is all the way in the positive. This is like pretty much what we go to church for, what we pray for, what we hope for. This is like when we are at our best. So I'm not really surprised that actually we got this, like in saying, okay, so there is like this kind of like measurement that needs to happen, and there is like a mix. No, I'm not saying to be in the middle. I'm just like saying that you need to kind of like take every single bolt down from every single thing that you feel guarded, for every single thing that you feel you have made your decision, you have made your verdict over something, because this is also a card of reflection. So if you're going up, and I see many people are going in different direction, because this is a year of advancement, this is a year where we're actually putting things in practice. So if in 2018 you were planning to renovate the house, maybe you're collecting kind of like the ideas, maybe you were kind of getting your estimates, in 2019 you're going to put it in place. If in 2018, like you were trying to, let's say, get married and find a proper partner, and maybe you were running in a whole bunch of people and feeling maybe even a little bit disillusioned and now getting more guarded. No, it's actually not the time to get more guarded and put more bolts in it. It's like saying, look, I'm still learning what works and what doesn't work. So that's why this reflection is very important. You're looking back and saying, okay, this did come back to me and I did like it. This came back to me and I didn't like it. So you kind of like figure out, this I don't want to have anymore, and this, you know, I do want to have way more to have of this. But also you're saying, I can tolerate this and I cannot tolerate that. So you're kind of like creating that proverbial line in sand, which is like a little bit different. So this kind of like boundaries are set up different. Only thing, because we are having here like this naked woman instead of the angel and the water. Like the nakedness is always talking about being authentic and being true to yourself. And like the truth, some people say, oh, just say it the way it is. I like to be honest, but I cannot say, well, he's going to dump you, for example, right? The truth also always, and that's where the difference in between good human and bad human kind of comes to play, is like how you render it. Because here it's talking about the truth mixed with kindness is basically something that kind of like dissolves everything negative coming your way, right? So just like think about Vunya reversed, as I told you, 3 days. So when somebody comes at us, we react back. There is like this bad blood, right? And we say things that maybe we didn't want to say. 3 days delay, the steam is out, right? You wake up in a new garden and you realize, oh wow, you know, this person actually really wants this. So how do I meet his or her needs without sacrificing mine? Because at this stage the rational mind kicks in, and remember, this is all about logic. So if you can find a way to present that in a logical way, most likely you're going to be successful. Okay guys, so let me tell you a little bit about this year number 3, because that's also very important. So year number 3, we were technically in the year number 2, but for some of us was year number 11. So what's the difference? 1 and 1 is 2. And so why it was for somebody 11 and for some other 2. Not everybody can all the time be at the highest spiritual level. So we just like resort down to what we can do. So number 2 is about harmonizing. Number 2 is like, how can we actually improve and get along better and work better, right? But number 11 is like taking that to the much higher level, sort of like thinking about mankind. And funny enough, even though it is about good, when is good needed? Good is needed to erase the bad. So lots of bad things happen in year number 11. Lots of things that maybe we need to kind of really work for. So after a year in which other people's needs kind of eclipsed our own needs, now it is our turn. The 3 year is like really simple and more casual, this like 12-month cycle. And what is really important, and advise making this big sign and put it on your fridge, what do I want? Right? You're going to see that all the things that maybe you didn't consciously plan, but they're kind of coming up, are actually really kind of like coming back. So your own long-term happiness and fulfillment are really the central issues here. And the 3 year cycle gives you that opportunity to discover and then create what you believe will actually make you happy. Remember Wunyorun? So what you want is actually attainable regardless of what appears to be standing in your way. Are challenges going to happen? Do you have a clear road? Nope. No, you don't. But as I told you, like, spend a few days to kind of think through it. Make sure that you have a backup plan, because people will surprise you with how unreliable they are. So direction of your happiness will be uncovered, and you will first have to detect and, as I said, heal the sources of your unhappiness, which you will find have as much to do with what is taking place in the world, as I told you, this is general, as it does also with your own personal situation, because they're like these two puzzles that have to fit together. So it's going to be about direction we take with personal situations, relationships, and also memories. You will really have to feel what you're feeling, and you will need to express those emotions in a way that is really natural for you. We all have different expressions. Yes, some signs are more aloof, some are like just like too kind of like, you know, opening their kind of like water taps too much and cry easily. But this is not to measure that just because you cry over something that you feel deeper or more. Sometimes people cannot cry because they would just like lose it. Just keep in mind, when you see this person like huffing and puffing, angry, that person is like the one who just cannot allow themselves to do that, because they will fall apart. This is how fragile they really are. Remember, happiness is a feeling, it's an emotion, and that only comes from inside. And there will be at least one opportunity this year to feel joy as you have never felt it before. Remember, joy. Remember, what do I want? What kind of joy do I want? So as this 3 year kind of progresses, you are going to find yourself, and this is good, in some kind of spotlight. And you will certainly need to express your alternating fears of failure and success. Yes. If you feel, oh my gosh, I'm not going to succeed, that means you're hesitating. Like for the last 2 years, you have been going through that, thinking through it. So why don't you make these first steps? It's going to be some kind of like release. It's going to be making you feel more comfortable, or who you are, what you are, and where are you now. It's going to be that realistic perspective. Remember the woman under this waterfall. It's kind of like that cleanse. I see myself now. I see myself clearly, right? So this completely a new spectrum of options will open up for you. So it's going to be really important that you're going to see now that you're creating something because you have already created in the past. It was in the back of your head. It was something you noticed, and now the puzzles are coming together, and you are becoming that creative springboard from which you build your future. And you might need to take a few courageous leaps in the dark, as I said. So if you're hesitating to make a first step, and if you're thinking, no, I don't ever succeed, I don't do that, well, no, this time you need to take the step forward, because that is going to completely open this new door. Because fear is really there to teach us. That's what needs to be healed, right? So that's kind of like what is guiding us on that path to develop courage and to know that you're far more capable than you ever allowed yourself to believe. And this is that level of self-acceptance. I am this way. I'm just this way. I'm not trying to be Cindy Crawford. I'm not trying to be Brad Pitt. I'm this way, but guess what? I'm really unique. My kindness, my approach with other people, whatever kind of like works for you, is like something very unique, very authentic for you. So that's going to be part of that self-acceptance. And all of a sudden your leaves will turn to bounds. And this year could turn out to be your most fulfilling year ever. So just remember that courage is not the absence of fear. Just because you're courageous doesn't mean you clear all that fear. So if you're not afraid also, then courage has nothing to do with that. So what courage really is the acceptance of fear and saying, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to get through it, whatever is causing it. So it could also be like, some kind of like financial state that you have to go through it. You're wondering how can you put things together. So it's kind of like moving it forward. That's kind of like really, really going to help. So this is kind of like that part telling you that nothing is going to be really rosy. But this year, among many, many years, is one of the best years. So in addition to courage that is going to be kind of like exercised, it's also going to be a year full of lightness and happiness and innocence and peace and truth and friendship, creativity, communication, dealing with younger people or feeling youthful ourselves. We are going to be more beautiful, and of course that's going to start kind of like shifting our personality into something that is lighter and more optimistic, more loving, and it's going to be way more laughter than we had in a while. Of course, keep in mind, in order to get there, that sometimes that kind of like the opposite can come through it. So also, on the outside, we might see people who will try to put us in depression and sorrow and guilt, gossip, lies, enemies, ugliness. Am I talking about politicians? I guess I must be. As you can see, the reason why year number 3 is giving us all this happiness and lightness, it's simply to be the antidote to all of these kind of like other things. So if you experience this kind of like pessimistic or, rejection or coldness, then these kind of like things have their purpose. Those adverse elements often enter our lives in the year number 3 to show us that we maybe equate happiness with really superficial and shallow things. And this year, because the number 3 is represented in tarot with Empress, and it's very female, it's very feminine energy. It is kind of like being quiet strength, being that light and light beam to the others. So just think about the perfect woman. So of course she's going to be challenged with those rude males or rude partners or partners who just like really want to conquer her. So yeah, she can engage back and just become just like one of them, or she can just like have this like kindness and lightness about her and just say, nope, I'm going to be courageous enough to say no to you. Maybe you're not my only choice, and if you are, I don't want you, kind of a thing. So year number 3 is very, very important as far as relationship. It's not asking you just to go and hook up with somebody. Nope, it's not going to work that way at all. So it actually is going to ask and demand independence. You will want to be independent. It's kind of contradiction. You're going to be actually more successful in a relationship by being independent than actually just trying to find somebody just because it's easier in the two. This is going to be a really, really good fit, because it's going to be an opportunity to love deeply without constantly worrying about what others think. And the more you have the higher self-esteem, the more you approve of yourself and do what you want to do, the more others will accept you as you are, because they'll be witnessing that transformation, and this like pure beauty is going to come through no matter how you look, because you're going to have that authentic confidence. So when this inner beauty is expressed outwardly, it's really, really hard to resist. And we all know people like that who might not even be beautiful on the surface, but their charisma is like so strong. They just like kind of have to put this kind of like smile on their face and they become irresistible. And usually we see that through smile quite a bit of the times. So anybody who will try to kind of like keep up appearances or having any kind of like displays of false confidence or being bullied, that's not going to work. If you want to pretend that you're happy or fearless, that's not going to work. Remember, it's going back to what do I want, and it's going to make you push you through. You need to get there by getting along with the other people, by being kind, by being nice. And that of course means kind of like wiggling through many different people who might still not get this memo. So friends will also play an important role in this year, so make sure that you actually give yourself more time for social interaction, and that's where the independence with relationship is going to kind of come to play, because you will kind of like try to please other people, but you also have to realize that you are important, right? So you shouldn't kind of like spread yourself too thin if you're neglecting yourself. You kind of have to put yourself first and then kind of like give time to everybody, because if you don't pay attention to your friends, then you're going to lose them, because this year is going to be year of abundance. Just like think about it, it's going to be Christmas all year long. This is how it's going to feel. So how would you feel that very, very good friends like you on Christmas? So keep in mind that you're really thinking about everybody, because it's going to be very, very important for kind of like what kind of brownie points you do that in the future. Because you know, courageous is not only being when, you know, when there is a fear or there is a struggle, but what when you really can do it, when there's easy to do it, and then you don't do it out of laziness, or you just become, you know, arrogant because you feel like you're better than anybody else. Keep that in mind, keep that in perspective, because also individuality is going to be very important. You'll be kind of like creating some kind of like new format of who you are. You can kind of like remove these like bad parts or smoothen them, and kind of like understand that the happiness, this new happiness that you're generating, is also partially because you are actually creating this new optimism. And anybody who is going to have a blatant self-interest is just simply going to be kind of like pushed on the sidelines, and they'll be probably waiting on the next cycle, which is going to come in 9 years, to try it again, right? So also, this is a very creative year. It's a year of communication, expression. So you might want to read, or you might want to write a book, but it's also going to be looking at the images and sound and humor and movies. It's going to be really important. It's almost going to be a big stage, right, this year. So kind of like expression in many different elements. Also, as I said, with the rune Vunya reverse, make sure you check the facts for yourself. It's very often in the 3-year that we kind of like really succumb easily to, what do you call it, hearsay, I believe, or somebody who is very loud. You know, just because you're very loud doesn't mean you're right. So that's why I'm saying give it a delay of 3 days. Somebody says I'm authority, question even that, because the truth is likely to be buried beneath layers of deception or misconception, right? So try to keep an open mind. Also, this year could be a year of appearances. So meaning what appears to be the case must be seen for what it is deep down, not just like what it appears to be, right? Just because you have flowers and something looks really nice on the top doesn't mean there's like something really muddy and horrible on the bottom. So just make sure that you correctly understand everything, that you clarify, and that you kind of like are on the same page. And even at that, kind of like still, if you feel that you're betrayed or somebody's like negative, you just like will realize this is just part of the course. Maybe you shouldn't react. Maybe this person is in pain. Maybe this person feels you're going ahead and they are not, and even though it's not your fault, they are being reactive. And take this in account before you actually kind of like deal with other people. Keep in mind that the better person you are, the better everybody around you will become, because it's almost contagious, and this is how good it's going to be. And you're going to really address that feel, as I said, that armor is not going to last. It's going to fall apart. Like, I mean, we have to heal all the wounds. We kind of are generating completely this new body. Remember the woman under the waterfall. We are washing it over. We are healing. Just think about for a moment, God is giving you everything new. New health, new body, new possibility, new start. And even though we are going to have share of our problems this year, we are perfectly able to deal with them. The Empress is the perfect woman. She addresses things wisely, and she's kind of like moving it forward with this gentle touch, this loving and kindness and children and pets and creativity and anything that we can give birth to, such as like, I mean, new things, a new personality, new perspective, is going to be really, really important. So the year of optimism, which is very positive, I would just like, I mean, welcome you to enjoy your trip on the tree path, because it's going to be interesting and a creative year to live in. So let's start with the individual signs from this point on. Hello Capricorns, it's your turn. Look at my little mini lion staying here and watching her birds. So as soon as she allows me to actually attend to shuffling the cards, I'm going to start. So let's see what is in the store for Capricorn in 2019. Hello Capricorn, and welcome to your annual reading. So happy new year, and thank you very much for your order. So let's see what we have here. Actually, I really like what I see. I really have to tell you, we are in that year number 3, and you do have absolutely resonance with 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and I think I've seen it one more time, 3. So look at that, like it's that introduction part is going to be highly resonating with you. You are actually being pushed on the next level. You're pushed to actually release certain things from the past and to activate yourself. You are getting that sacral chakra as well. It could be some issues on your kind of like physical level, possibly something related to sexuality. You're an earth sign, and sexuality to you is an expression of who you are and how you connect with the loved ones. And it's going to be really important in order how to kind of like merge, because also you have the High Priestess, which also is number 2. You are going to actually not have that raw sex, like, I mean, not that you would otherwise, but that is going to be expression of high connectivity. So let's backtrack. You are starting a year with some sense of nostalgia, with some sense of sadness, with some sense of, you know, I didn't have it good. I kind of like see both of these cards are about the same card in 2 different decks. One is named heartache and loss, another one is named sadness and isolation. But look at here, he is trying to kind of like uplift himself, raise his arms and kind of generate his energy, but in the reverse state he's kind of like curled up and holding things in. Same motive, we see that here. There is like this big heart, and again it is like something about sacral chakra. There is some kind of limitation. This also can actually really talk about rejection. It can also talk about not knowing in which direction to go, not trusting your instincts, not trusting your partner. You know, like it's kind of like that icky feeling. And you do know like that fog is very similar to basically clouds, but it is a low cloud. It's kind of like those water crystals that are not making us see ahead. And during those times, you know, it is really important to kind of like bide our time and not to rush through it, and kind of like pause and allow ourselves to kind of be understanding that there is like some kind of density. Maybe certain things are not meant to be seen this way, and forcing them can actually cause a crash or something like it, right? So this is like some kind of like confusion. Maybe you are unsure if things are going to clear up. I can definitely see that, almost like somebody put wool over your eyes. The truth is like that the fog will eventually dissolve, right? Although there could be kind of like many different ways that maybe unconsciously are contributing to that state. So the greater truth is that simply it's a basically cycle that you're moving through, and you know what Buddha says, say this too shall pass. So you simply need to allow yourself to be confused. In fact, decide to be confused, because that way you're kind of like giving yourself that permission. So, because no matter what attempts you make right now to make things happen, and this is the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, looks like you're resolving something that I really think it's in your head. Fog is like the air, and this is air, and this is air. Like there are like lots of things that are going through your head, thoughts that are limiting you in some way. Maybe you feel you're not good enough. Maybe you're still holding resentments or rejections from something from the past. Maybe you are frustrated or feeling impatient. Maybe you feel that you're going to risk your status if you act, and yet you feel that you must act, not really knowing in which direction to go or what to do. So you really need to wait, and this card is all about waiting as well. Seven of Earth is a really good card for you guys. Seven of Earth is really talking about that anticipation of results, knowing that maybe you are only halfway, maybe not even there, but now looking back, you need to acknowledge and understand that things actually did develop. Look at this fairy that is like showing up out of nowhere. It's kind of like those things, help yourself and God will help you kind of a thing. So if you get into that state of confusion and not knowing what to do, you need to remember that you have already done a lot, and then sometimes we need to move slower. So just allow yourself to be patient and wait for that, first glimmer of awareness. So to live that way, so you can actually see the choices before you. I also think that you really need to be kind to yourself. So when was the last time, my dear Capricorn, that you have said to yourself, I love you? Look at that. You're getting receptivity and you're getting healing. Something really major is taking place with you, for you, this particular year. And I'm so glad to see it. Like, this beginning seems to be clearing the old issues, clearing everything that maybe got stuck, that didn't get out. It's the winter in the northern hemisphere. Maybe they're like that case of winter blues, and not really knowing how to move forward, maybe not even feeling motivated. Maybe you're isolating yourself, but isolation can be very productive if you're kind of like going deep into meditation, and if you're kind to yourself. And kind to yourself, I think you're going to be. There is like Queen of basically Cups, or receptivity. You can actually see here in this card that somebody is raising their arms. There is like something glorious happening, and Lotus, that has to go all the way to the surface, is actually opening its petals. So because she doesn't have a head, that really talks about that she doesn't have that busy and aggressive mind, which I see you are kind of like enmeshed in here, to basically hinder her pure receptivity. This is again feelers, putting the feelers out, understanding. This is kind of like also time for gratitude of whatever life brings. If you feel that you're in this fog, why don't you say, well, thank you, this must be here, happening for a reason. And just like see how your attitude and how your energy with that kind of like shifts. This card, this receptivity card, talks about that you don't have any kind of duty other than really being kind. And this is about sensitivity and intuition and compassion and all of these qualities that are really going to shine. So I really think you should actually ask for these from the people around you, as well as give them yourself, because it's going to be really important. That is going to set the stage for you, what you're doing this year. I really kind of like this, because you need to clean something in order to put something else. Just imagine, there's like the talk about a glass half full, half empty. Well, whether or not it's half full or half empty. If you keep that liquid in a glass, it's eventually going to start generating some kind of like life, some kind of like flora and fauna, as I call it. And that yucky thing need to be washed before that glass can be reused. And that's what I see, that maybe there's still debris, maybe there are like still things that need to be addressed, but like something is going to kind of like nibble on your mind and kind of like tell you, hey, you go here, do this. It's usually this the little kind of like voice, because you're earth sign, that you don't necessarily follow, but please do follow. And whenever you start falling into that kind of like bundle up thing, it is a really good exercise to open your arms instead, because immediately you're allowing your heart to open and to receive this energy. So you need to learn that receptivity. Look at those open arms. We are seeing that motive twice, and it is all about heart. Your heart needs to be able to sort of like breathe with full lungs. The second quarter that we are moving into is like finally giving us the reason why all of this was happening. First of all, you have the card fairies, which we did see over here. So there is like that kind of like a magic that, you know, you maybe felt it's not going to happen to you. Maybe you felt, oh my gosh, it's never going to build up and go to where I really want to go. But hello, now it's really telling you have the same power as basically the fairies do. And it's really starting with that receptive and loving feeling and that heartfelt gratitude. It's also appreciation of everything earthy, right? So flowers, everything that grows, including immaterial objects such as stones. And it's basically giving your ability, like paying attention to all of that life around you and demonstrating your care. If you have a plant at home, even if it's only one, just like start treating it as a living being. I don't know if you know, but I did basically studies, scientific studies, to see if plants really have life and emotional life. And surprise, surprise, they actually in one case, they even managed to figure out who was the murderer when only plants were in the room, because plants would just react in a very shrieking, kind of like contracting way when they have been measured against the people who they tested them. It's almost like the lineup, the police lineup. And if you are to cut the plant, they are going to actually be in a huge distress. Only thing is like they're static, they cannot move, they really have to be subject to everything we are doing. So imagine with you being an earth sign, how much feeding your element is going to come back to you. This is your key to love, enthusiasm. This is your key to put your hands in dirt. And we are talking about spring gardening, or for those of you in the southern hemisphere, doing all of that stuff that you have to do in the fall before everything, and harvest. So this is really tending to living beings, so plants and animals. And guess what? You're going to be rewarded for taking care of these plants many times over. It is like sort of like making you understand how you can make an impact and how you can make a difference without strife. It's giving you completely different tools, because I still see some left over. I still see that maybe there was a situation where you felt neglected. Maybe it's a situation, look at this. Again, we see this motive of heart. You see she has a heart here, and there is a heart here, almost like with the same intention. Here is like basically saying, look, are you even able to have a winning situation when others lose? How do you perceive you as a person? How do you feel that life should progress? Because this card is really sending us a message that we need to look for situations and communication with others where we find a compromise, where we find a way to kind of like collaborate with them. Whenever you have fives, it's always talking about some discord. And also you have 10 of air. And 10 of air is telling me that whatever was happening, right, whether or not you wanted to go toward, you know, obtain excuse me, obtaining some money or prestige or something, that this is really telling you have to really see where is your focus. Is you're going towards something? You know how we all have goals, but how many of us think if those goals are actually in accordance with the other people's goals? If somebody is going to feel slighted, right? If we are kind of like pushing our will just because we want something. Because you're finally having emergence of this card, completion. This is probably the best card in the entire deck. Completion in this particular deck is really shown with the last puzzle being placed in. And I really think you needed to shed certain things. You need to realize that yes, maybe you have been victimized, maybe you have been mistreated, and maybe you started to react out of pain. And that reaction out of pain was like being maybe rigid, maybe just going in direction of accumulation of wealth, and maybe you have forgotten yourself in the process, because there's the world being such a strong card, right? Like last piece of a puzzle is being put into place, but guess what? It's being placed here in the position of the third eye, and that's the place of inner perception. So again, we are talking here, the head is being kind of like replaced with receptivity. Here it's that opening up, and here you also have High Priestess. You guys are getting like fine-tuned in something that really has to come. You know, maybe like, I mean, there's like some kind of situation that is coming to an end, but that's the fact of life, that basically endings happen, but also new beginnings happen. So I really feel that has been maybe a tint of depression, a tint of sadness, a tint of rejection, or tint of how could you do that to me? And as a reply, you kind of like felt polarized in some kind of like behaviors. You know, we are all product of our life and of our environment. So change basically your environment, you're changing quite a bit of the attitude toward others. Like, it's not unheard of that people move from the city to country and all of a sudden the stress dissipates. The World card is like really kind of like telling me that whatever has been absorbing your time and energy, it's like really now coming to an end. Like, and in your case, it's a really good news, because there was like a lots of things swirling through your head and almost like making you feel inadequate, making you feel you're not good as you are, and kind of like maybe even losing your contact with that higher being, right? But something new is going to begin when this card shows up. So this is kind of like a card that really tells you, hey, you know what? Celebrate both. It is kind of like a really good stage where you're going to be, and you're finally putting those things behind you. You might have similar situations coming up, but you'll be dealing with them in a completely different way. And there we go, we have this karma. And karma to me card, and also it's called DNA, it always kind of like talks to me about some kind of like repair, right? There is like this process, and it's a kind of like also very spiritual concept, right? That samsara, that is like the cycles of birth and death and rebirth, that we consider karma, and bad karma some people kind of consider punishment. The truth is that this life is just like tiny little speckle on the big continuum on all the lives that we have lived. And if this life is absolutely perfect, this kind of like rewards, and let's say like what we need to learn might reflect elsewhere and might reflect on the other side. So the whole idea here is more or less learning about things. In particular, I think this life is all about learning about our ego. Being that you are an earth sign, earth signs need to learn about that contact with physical, contact with beauty, how important it is. What is important? Is it the one on the outside, or is it the one on the inside? And you usually tend to be perfectionist, and everything on the outside seems to be right because you're kind of like putting things in order. But what basically happens is that all of a sudden you feel like you're not getting results that you feel you should be getting for all that effort and work, because that's really the time when you kind of need to push yourself a little bit deeper in. we did have that year number 2, where many of us did go through some kind of like x-raying our own past, who we are, what we want. Maybe changes were not made, but lots of thinking happened in that particular time. So this also card tells me that, you know, soul and the physical, they're two different things. We are product of our ancestors' genes, but there is like this theory which I see that soul is something that is inherited completely in a different way. You simply just take somebody's body as a vessel, and sometimes we take that vessel body as too serious, and we follow those ancestors and everybody who on a physical level tell us what to do. Remember, Lancaster always pays debts. We kind of like follow that ancestral karma, you know, gender karma, you know, societal karma. And this is kind of like one of those times. The third quarter here for you is going to be sort of like a tug of your soul, which is both ancient and karmic. And you're going to also basically recognize that persisting and loving communication that you guys are going to have. Look at that. You're having this completion, the universe card, like showing up again. So we are seeing here Milky Way. This card here showed up reversed. So this is really telling me that you're still picking up on certain things from the past. Because usually in the regular decks, these cards that are repeated for you 3 times, 1, 2, 3, are usually represented with fixed signs standing in the corners. So Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus, and guarding you. Because fixed signs' role is to make things that people do happen. Right? They don't necessarily need to create them, but they're ensuring the processes are working. So hence, they can be a little bit rigid. So they are kind of like pushing you through this process and kind of like almost encouraging you to go on your way. So keep in mind that it's going to be kind of choice between destiny and fate. And I mean, I'm sorry, somebody is really chasing somebody outside. What can I tell you? Christmas time. It is like really important to, I cannot stress enough how many basically earth significators you have. You have completion, you have 7 of Pentacles, you have earth magic, and then you have like this world, universe, and then you have the world over here. It keeps repeating, it keeps telling you it is very important that you go through this process. You are kind of like almost becoming a little bit gentler, a little bit softer. Maybe you're finally realizing that yes, you can open yourself up. The things from the past have to resurface. Maybe you are not only a product of your genes. Maybe you are actually much more than that. Because look at this, challenging times, you'll be able to have a shield. You'll be able to, look, he also has this invisible shield from behind. That's that sun in his back. We did have the sun in his back here. We did say, look, you need to open your arms to feel that energy coming through. And we did have the peak of the sun here. So this is really telling me that you need to know MO, modus operandi, method of operation, that you're going to have as a go-to when certain things arise. And certain things might still keep popping up on the surface, just like a little bubbles that for some reason want to be there and challenge you. Challenging times really with this big shield is like saying to me 2 things. One, maybe you really need to re-establish your boundaries. Maybe certain things that worked before are not working anymore, because maybe you're realizing constraining nature of these things, and maybe you're just simply exhausted with kind of like continuing down that path. Look at this card, exhaustion. What is exhaustion really talking about? We are seeing this fellow here maintaining this silly apparatus over here. So it kind of like looks like that he is like at his wits and over here, kind of like he's trying to keep all of that together. So the message of this card is not about being a workaholic, really, and I really think this is what was happening. You were trying to jump higher, you were trying to be more perfectionist, you were trying to be better, and instead, like, I mean, things were not happening. In fact, less and less things happened because people felt, oh my gosh, I cannot keep up with you, you are too good for me, or, you know, you're going to have high expectations of me, and you didn't even realize that maybe you're sending all of these things down the road, right? So this is basically telling you, look, you know, are you sure you want to keep this up? Is this like machine even, you know, needed? Like, I mean, how about being like a little bit spontaneous and kind of like, life isn't business to be managed, right? It's actually a form of I have to stop if this doesn't stop. Sorry, let me just close the window. You know, good lordy, you need to kind of realize, and it just hit me, I was not listening to what is happening. It was the alarm coming through, and again and again and again. It was irritating me, but I kept on being on my path. And I really feel this is what it is. You're not hearing something, and just like that is going to hit you. Wait a minute, I can stop. I don't have to be on target. I don't have to just keep going. Like, it's okay to stop. It's okay kind of like to let down. It's okay to stop this engine, because look, now the World card is like fully open. The key is appearing, that universe is appearing, and this third quarter, with having this twice, you simply need to learn how to kind of like really be imperfect, how to accept yourself in that way. And it's going to be really, really interesting the moment when you do that, that gate opens, right? Because you come here and you're saying, okay, what now? I see the lock, but I have no key. But yes, you do have a key. The key is basically your mind. So instead of like trying to maintain this and trying to have maybe a feeling of how processes should work, remember that this year you actually did quite a bit. You were very methodical, and you are actually getting completely different dimensions. So this is going to happen on more than one level, because these 4 fixed signs that I've told you are sort of like defining and pushing you through. They're pushing you through different layers. They're pushing you through and helping you establish yourself better and kind of like figure out a better way of possibly making money, of possibly kind of like having a better relationship with your family and with your loved ones. It's going to help you with understanding your own thoughts and how your thoughts can affect your well-being and possibly your health, and being able to almost like conquer them, and more being open toward others, because I've seen that at some point you really are not willing to show weakness and tell others that you are hurting. And it's very important to be able to kind of like get out of that spot. And I really see that all of a sudden, all of these things, you almost like not only cleaned it, but you went with a fine like tooth comb and even with a sander to clean all of the debris. So hello, perfectionist in cleaning, absolutely. And then voila, the last quarter, just before your birthday in 2019. Yeah, I know, lots of work, but finally rewards are not little, they are huge. You're having this dragonfly, like, I mean, it's called emergence here. I think dragonfly generally skips one level of development, so we do not have the cocoon stage. I think it's going directly from what do they call it, egg to nymph, right? So the nymph then crawls on all these kind of like leaves, and eventually basically hatch and turns into the basically beautiful dragonfly. And dragonflies are so radiant, and all this kind of rainbow color that we see in them, and there's like always that sense of purpose. And also you see this woman emerging, and she clearly, look at that, like, look at the plans that I was telling you about, these fairies. You guys are completely becoming somebody else. You're coming in your full power. There is like this next cycle of your life. So we are talking September 2019, really a big bang. Whatever you're planning, this is absolutely amazing. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be like what you generally like, slow and steady wins the race. No, this is going to be something that is going to be happening quite rapidly, and it might come completely unexpectedly, right? It's just like simply almost going to be like you just drop your swords and it's like, I just can't do it. And the next day you wake up and poof, everything changes, right? So you just need to know one thing, that you are prepared. Do you know how bamboo tree works? And I think it's after you plant the seed. I'm not so sure about what period of time, but I really think something that maybe could be even 7 years. The tree is not emerging, and it keeps going down and down and down because the roots have to be so solid for supporting that such a huge tree. It's a hollow tree, not like oak, which kind of has to grow in layers. But once bamboo tree starts to show life on the outside, it shoots to like really, really high heights. So it is really something like that is going to happen, something unprecedented, and most likely something that if it happened before in your life, it was like one of those life-defining moments. It is like really, really important over here to understand this is going to be heightened consciousness. You also have high priestess. It is kind of like completely understanding how things work. I mean, it's that ability when you see a person and all of a sudden you're going to either see their auras, or you're going to, like, for example, I see red light flashing over a person. If a person is lying, you will be able to pick up on such small things that are not known to science, but somehow, like, because you're connecting with these fairies, you are kind of like working on yourself and finally emerging. The like apprenticeship, it's over. You are actually surrendering to that flow, and you are kind of like allowing yourself to gracefully move into that next cycle of life. There is like no anymore helplessness and hopelessness. Like, you are choosing this path and you're really clear where you want to go. The authority card is like showing to me that you are finally feeling stable, you're finally feeling established. You kind of have this like sixth sense, as they call it, where you almost like have this higher spiritual quality. So the healing cycle that you started with, taking care of yourself, is finally completing. And look at that, we are again seeing that sacral chakra, and we are again seeing this kind of like dwelling in your third eye and dwelling in your kind of crown chakra. That this is completely being attended to, because this is like amazing card to get. Like, this is the highest accomplishment in emotions, and anything that maybe has been a wound where somebody kind of like put those swords in you, and we go through life and people leave mark on us, right? But all of a sudden, like, I mean, we see this kind of like light coming through over here, that we no longer hide ourselves from others. It's that attitude of openness and acceptance, and it's also that you will be able now to help others to be sort of like very unique and healthy and whole. Trust me, by the time this year ends, and you might be connecting with people on a kind of sexual level, you might have like prominence of water signs and some other signs, such as Aries, such as Aquarius, such as Taurus, such as Scorpio, and who did I forget? Leo. These signs, whenever they occur in your life, they're occurring for a reason. They're shifting you on a path where you're supposed to be. Like, entire karma that is showing up here is shifting you to go onto this much higher level. So the next part, guys, I'm going to actually read your astrological houses. There are 12 houses, so every sign sort of has its own house, and there are like certain things that we will experience. So we are going to kind of like shift this all through basically those brackets, so we can see what happens in your personal relationships, what kind of commitments you can expect, about the co-workers, parents, etc., and so on and so forth. The very last part is going to be Lenormand, where you're putting all of this in some kind of like timeline. So let me start shuffling your astrological houses. Alright guys, there are 12 astrological houses. I'll be explaining each one of them as we come along. It is very interesting though, because I'm seeing the same themes that we have been actually observing over your quarterly reading, and it's really interesting. The King of Cups is coming here with sort of like that self-resonance, and the only major arcana that I got over here is the Devil card, which in case is actually you. It's actually also really good news. So let me start. The very first house is about your appearance and outward personality, and you're definitely getting out of that victimhood and victim mode and feeling wronged. It looks like you accumulated lots of stuff. Remember that guy who was trying to keep that system going on? You are getting into this really gentle, really blissed state. You are feeling other people, you are trying to understand them, and you are giving them this kind of like soft place to fall. So you guys are really going to have a completely different, if you wish, makeup. Not necessarily something that you paint on your face, but it's like really that structure of you, where maybe you're going to see that everything that has been happening in the past made sense, because you are really becoming something so much better, so much stronger. In the house number 2, it is like talking about personal resources, and I'm pretty sure you kind of like everything about that. And these are values and skills and what has to happen. And look, it is suggesting for you that what you should be doing this year is to value your friendship, value these gentle, quiet times. It's not going to be focused toward money and focused toward achievement. Rather, the focus is going to be, you know, how can I really kind of let my guard down? How can I really have these friends? Remember what I said, allow yourself to be hugged and give hugs. This is going to be almost like doctor's orders this particular year. In the house number 3, it's your house of learning and siblings and communication. So you're feeling quite joyful over here. You're feeling you're kind of in your element. There is like this feeling of, hey, you know what? I kind of like understand myself right now. I do understand, and it's the end of that cycle. Remember, we were seeing that through the World card, but here is like clearly saying emotionally balanced state. There is like this emotional success. This guy looks extremely happy and cheery. It's kind of like also waiting for things to kind of like come to you. It is a deep process from inside that is really happening and brewing. I'm going very fast because this is really wonderful, and I'm so excited to kind of like give you this news. Forget the fact that they're all reversed, because we have seen the fact that the reverse cards showed up in your reading for a reason. And that reason is very clear. You are being prepared for that emergence. You're being prepared for kind of like getting into that. There is like this huge healing taking place. So if you are sick, because this house number 5 is talking about your inner security, there is no doubt that you're going to be in emotional fullness. If you're looking to meet somebody, you're going to meet somebody who is absolutely wonderful, who is capable of giving and sharing emotion. It's not one of those superficial people who are just looking, you know, ABC, you know, do you dress well, do this and this. And you're actually going to see really the value into something that is really not able to be measured with money or anything else, but simply just like with how you feel. This could be somebody who is a really good listener, and also they're going to see a great listener in you, that you maybe are going to be dealing with somebody else over here and helping, and somebody is going to look from basically sidelines and kind of like really see that light and greatness in you that we have been seeing emerging all the year, and somebody who is really also able to fit into what you basically always wanted, in some kind of like structure that your family gets along, etc., etc. It's definitely kind of like emotional satisfaction. You know, like when we are in the zone, when we are going through the stages and we go, oh my gosh, I really feel today. There is no reason. I just feel really, really good today. So don't really relax too much that you have it made, because it's going to really feel this way. It might also feel that relaxation when you're on vacation, when you kind of like all the worries are being left somewhere you came from, but right then and there you're kind of like feeling free of all of these things. And then we are getting into house number 5. And house number 5 is basically romance and children and fun and creativity. Also how you can really serve. So you need to understand that you have been building something up, that you have been working on something. You did have a similar card, 7 of Pentacles, which kind of talks about reassessing everything you did in the past. This particular card talks about defending your position, and defending your position that actually took you a long time to get to, right? This is kind of like when the winner, like remember you had this win and lose, but then I warned you, kind of be very careful that win and lose can actually create lots of people who will attack you because they want something that you have, or you know, they are not feeling okay with kind of like the fact that maybe you're a little bit above them. This, I would really say to be really careful, to look for consensus, to really kind of like find, this is not necessarily a stick, but this is like the stick that goes over your heart chakra, right? Which you are really opening. So I really feel this is more or less telling me that you also really need to be almost like discriminatory toward people that are coming in your life. No longer should you let people who are unwilling to respect you, who are unwilling to really give you what you need. Like, what's the point of keep trying and trying and trying and all of these people letting you down? Why not to kind of like be a little bit slower in inception and just kind of revolve? But this is kind of like going back to that fast emergence where you'll be able to really quickly respond to whatever is happening, whatever is actually coming your way. The house number 6 is also a house of serving. Instead of like personal creativity, this is really about work. So usually these houses, these 2 houses, are really talking about things that are going on that is usually the most important. Our work, our relationships. With relationships, you're going to have completely different ways of dealing with things. Certain things that you feel didn't work for you, you're going to hold your guard, but also going to drop your guard and kind of like feel that, hey, you know what, I'm finally respected. Yes, I maybe need to fight for it. I need to reestablish this line in the sand every so often, but this is really what is important. And then we have like this 8 of Pentacles for your work, which is absolutely lovely card to get for your work, because you also have here with the group contributions that also it feels like in your work kind of like endeavors that maybe you isolated yourself, you were very goal oriented, and you maybe did receive reputation for, you know, perfectionism, for, you know, this person is on up and up, that sort of things. To me, this is like a card of like now putting this like fine details on everything that you have been building. And sometimes this fine details, like let's say if you wrap the gifts, is like that nice bow. It is like something that is like really beautifying and softening things. The 8 is also about commitments and finishing commitments that you have placed or that other people have kind of like asked of you, or what you have asked of the other people. So work and relationship seems to be kind of like functioning really well. And here in the house number 7, we are reaching this house of your partner. So the Devil card is not necessarily the great card for the others, but you are represented with this card. And I generally do not agree that your sign should be represented with the Devil, given what kind of connotations the Devil have. But you guys from all earth signs are probably represented with this card, because if somebody is really going to excel financially or in business, it's going to be you. And I guess this is warning, do not sell your soul for it. Which movie was that with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino, where, you know, I think it was like Devil's Advocate or something like that. Take a look at this movie, because I think Al Pacino was basically the devil in the movie, and it was showing how, you know, lure of certain things can actually really push you there, because that's why you chose here. Remember, you had a karma card. You have chosen that you are an earth sign. You have chosen that this is like something you really want to explore, how to basically accumulate things, how to kind of like touch and feel. But this year is asking you that you take this all to the next level. Remember, fairies? Remember getting in touch? Remember putting these fine touches? So this is now reversed, and it's clearly telling me, oh my goodness, it's going to be so much freaking sex this year. It's not going to be fun. I think because you are having this new energy and new things going on, that people will be coming to you from all the nooks and crannies. It's no wonder that you will go, hey, wait a minute, line up, kind of like just everybody kind of like take it very, very slow. So it's going to be a bigger problem for you who stays and who goes. And it is really warning you over here not to fall back in the gap, not to fall back into that three. Remember that threes that we had? It was sadness, it was isolation. It almost like sounds to me that somebody from the past who has left a mark on you might actually reappear. Actually, that's a good thing, because you are not the same. And you know how they say, keep doing the same things over and over and expect different results. Hello, you're crazy. Well, you are not crazy. You are not repeating the same things anymore. You are clearly stating what you can do, what you cannot do, and what you expect and what you're not going to tolerate. With some people coming back in your life, because this is house number 8, and this is kind of telling me about the ending and other people and letting go, or generation, sex, death is generally, obviously you can tell, ruled by Scorpio. So here, instead of kind of like looking forward and looking new directions, you're actually looking backward, and you're looking, hey, you know what, I really don't want to go through this anymore. This friendship or this relationship doesn't work because I was trying to get along, I was trying to be nice, but you have abused me, or you're disrespecting me, or when it comes my turn, this is not happening. This is not about being selfish, it is about being healthy, because that energy has to flow. You are like really ask for the flow. You're getting this water because of flowing energy. So you're going to put under microscopes everything. Your partnerships, your work relationships, your romantic relationships, people who are coming and going, and people who are bringing Trojan horses, right? So do not believe Trojan, basically gifts. In the house number 9, and this is really talking about travel and law, it looks like there are like still some kind of like memories. You might be going to the places that you have already knew in the past, that you already felt good in the past, and I would encourage you to do that, as long as you're not falling in the trap of just repeating this whole cycle. Because remember, the world came back twice reversed, and when this kind of like does, it means that something from the past has to be finished. So I'm seeing that here maybe some of you might be traveling with somebody to kind of like reassess the issue, maybe one more time, maximum 2 more times, because you are really trying to clarify something for yourself. This is a card of nostalgia, this is a card of children, this is a card of who we have been, what we hope to become. So it's kind of like, hey, am I on the tangent where I kind of program myself? No. But do I really want to be on this tangent? Sort of like, you see, we're kind of layering all of these things. In the house number 10, this is reputation. Again, we are talking about a career, and you are you might be changing career, you might be changing your job, you might be feeling completely different purpose. Maybe something that you really felt very encouraged with in 2018 is all of a sudden going to look like, what the heck was I thinking, right? It's just like those like green things and stuff. So I can't understand people who are now thinking this is fashionable. People, we were finding them in the garbage. Let's not do that again. This is kind of like literally that kind of like light that you're feeling, and you're saying, no, no, not again, not me, no, gee, thanks, no thanks, kind of like not for me. So it's going to be really clear that you are regaining this focus, and focus for you is going to be gentle focus. It's going to be, you know, I really want to contribute, I really want to do things, but I really want to do things in a way that is not keeping anybody in the dark, that my advance and my advantage is not putting anybody down. It's a really huge concept. To get it right, it takes a lifetime, and you are really working on this. And when you start feeling and sending those vibes, you all of a sudden, like, create that energy that you're going to be irresistible. So friendships and family gatherings and partners, you literally kind of like are having everything flowing. And when there is like some barrier, there is there for a reason, because you need to look at it and address it, and addressing with a very gentle way, with kindness. That is what's going to open that barriers. Remember that kind of like keyhole that we saw. And then the last two cards, and this is about your friends and groups and goals and aspirations, right? This group contribution, they are taking down these walls. Remember when we had this like fourth quarter about that emperor, about the stability, like there is like finally you are ready to let go of whatever it was holding you. And this is really falling really in your career reputation. You maybe think you have made it, but because you have been maybe taking lessons, maybe you have been putting a fine touches on something and being very meticulous and detail oriented in your work, all of a sudden this is actually going to start to reflect that, hey, you know what, you know, maybe I have outstayed my welcome over here. Maybe I have to get a better position. Maybe I have to be promoted. This kind of like really talks about taking these walls. All the bricks are down. You're not holding on to everything you have, because you're realizing that flow of energy might happen. So you might be actually spending money on your friends. You might be spending money on some kind of like pursuits where groups are involved. So it could be memberships of some kinds. That could be professional, because clearly they're like linked and they're pentacles, but it could be also that you might be donating money to some kind of causes that are extremely important for you, or even volunteering your time. And the last house is your basically dream house, a spiritual life. And it is about solitude and self-sabotage. And you're clearly realizing that there was like something that you have been missing. And you were looking for the outward recognition, for the outward results, for sending these vibes on the outside and waiting what comes back, and maybe defending it. I'm seeing defending it here, I'm seeing defending it here. And now you're realizing that none of that really matters, that everything that you need to build is on the inside, because you're going to see this tremendous amount of energy and power, given how basically emotional you are able to create yourself in a nice, loving, structured, and kind being. So all of this other stuff, all of these gates are just naturally going to open. You see the water has this like huge element that no barrier is really standing in the way. Sooner or later is going to kind of like fall down if it's not maintained. And that's exactly what you are doing. So let's guys now do the Lenormand. So it's going to give us a lay of the land, and we are going to see how maybe time-wise these things can be further clarified and defined. Hi guys. this is also very interesting. There are like two main significators, right? And we also actually have Lenormand houses. Each basically card is positioned in a house, so I don't really need to shuffle and place the cards underneath as a significator because I actually know these houses. So these two main significators, the lady and the gentleman, are actually either of them can be you or both of them can be you. What is really interesting is that the gentleman is falling in the house of the gentleman. So this is really again confirming that healing nature, and especially if you're a woman, a strong man, strong silent type, somebody who is really willing to listen to you, somebody who might actually show up in your life with a child. Somebody might have a child, or you might have a child, and this person is going to be willing to accept the whole package deal, is going to be really, really prominent over here. I do see here that you guys might be cutting some kind of communication or really be selective about your dating. Again, that health theme is emerging. So the tree here is in the house of a garden, and the garden just like seems to be next to the card. Garden is generally talking about places where people gather, and this really can tell me that you might actually meet somebody who might initially even appear to be mysterious. You might meet this person through your work, and it might even be some kind of like miscommunication where, as I said, maybe it's going to feel that you're going through a situation and somebody's just going to be observing you from a side, but something might actually just sprout out of it, right? Later. Here is the ring and the fish, and this is sort of like the opening. This very first three cards I usually look, and you have the ring, which is really talks about commitment, and you are really figuring yourself out. Ring has like numerous meanings, right? Because of course it definitely can be, hey, give me a ring, you know, and not the one on the phone, kind of like as the song goes. But the ring also can talk about commitments. The ring can actually really talk about contracts. The ring can talk about civil unions, right? Moving in together, because we also have the house and we have the heart and we have this whip, which kind of like would be that little devil over here, like sexy thing. And guess what? The whip is in the house of the ring. So that's maybe what it means, that you are finding that union which is not only emotional but it's also sexual, and it really feels like the shoe fits. So partnerships and marriage and relationships, and maybe there is like some kind of announcement happening. You also have a dog in the house of a dog. This person is going to be loyal to a fault, and you are going to be the same way. This is like just one of those amazing connections. And it's kind of like really funny because maybe you were looking for a partner who is not a Klingon, who kind of like can pull their own weight. This time it's just like that essence that you're feeling, and you actually even are maybe thinking, well, this person doesn't have as much as I have, and all this kind of like old programming is kicking in. But this person actually has quite a bit, and they're putting maybe some contracts. Maybe they haven't fully spread their wings, but they will in this year. This also could mean you. This actually can also talk about babies. It can talk about, you know, something sprouting. The stork is like really talking about kind of communication on a distance. And that really I also see here with the ship. It is an anchor. You kind of want certain stability over something. Maybe you guys have a long-term relationship. Maybe you were really wondering if this person is staying. The fish kind of like coming here back and forth. But I'm really seeing here that this is going to be a year of loyalty. So at work, you're going to be loyal. But if you feel that you are outgrowing that stuff, you know, you're also going to move forward, and you're going to find kind of like greener pastures for you. I absolutely see, guys, it could be engagement, it could be long-term commitment, it could be moving in together. There are like so many different things that I see over here. It also could be some kind of like adoption for some of you. It could be new regulations at work. It's like really maybe that you're going to meet. It can be a little bit on the rounder side as well, or it could be somebody you meet through, you know, the fish has like this a sea theme over here, so it could be fish restaurant, it could be like on a coastal region, right? It could be kind of like somebody who is entrepreneur. You're getting a financial advice from this person, right? It is like something that is connecting with prosperity, and it's kind of like really interesting because usually this is a subject that is like really dear to you. You want to know all about it, but here in this particular case, like I'm in fish and ring together, it's kind of like new contracts. I'm definitely thinking that you are severing your previous job. You're losing passion for something that I really feel it's at work, and you are really going maybe in a healthy environment. Maybe you're realizing that you have outgrown like your environment. Maybe you are now seeing certain things, maybe even sides of yourself that you have become as you have been sort of like formatted or kind of like worked on through that environment, where now you're seeing, well, wait a minute, this is not exactly that I really want to go. Now, this can also mean taking a step back. It doesn't necessarily mean going in a position which is higher, but you're going to the position which is better, because this could mean kind of like reducing something, and that reduction, because it's in the house of the house, it could simply mean you need to spend a little bit more time with kind of like life work balance, right? So maybe you're not going to earn like any more for the 16 hours that you have been working. You'll be earning for 10, but nonetheless you're going to feel really good because you're rebalancing your life, and you're actually really happy that you're going in this direction. Your health is also going to be very important. You'll be going through a whole bunch of health checkups and trying to get your results and make sure that you're on the right path. Now, the crossroads are here in the house of the mountains. So I do see that somewhere, I don't know, like half year, and that's probably why we saw that world card coming reversed and coming upright, that you are reaching your share of challenges. It is over here that final challenges, final clearance, you're being tested. You're being tested in more ways than one, right? You will actually have, and what is the joke that is going on? And I'm horrible joke teller. I think the little girl was flying to the south, and the bird said, all of a sudden it's getting cold, and the bird drops and it's falling down on the ground. The ground is wintry and icy, and the bird is starting to unfortunately die. But the cow is passing by and poops. The manure falls on the bird, and all of a sudden that heat is like putting the bird back in life, right? And the bird is like, oh my gosh, I didn't die, I am alive. It starts to chirp, starts to kind of like do the stuff, and fox that is actually standing in the bushes is like jumping and actually, you know, killing the bird, because the bird did allow, you know, did basically point out its presence over there. So what is the moral of the story? Not everybody who shits on you is your enemy, right? And when you're nice and cozy, keep your effing mouth shut. So sorry to be kind of vulgar, but that's basically how this joke has to be rendered, right? This whole idea here is that that's going to be lots of observation. There are lots of things from the past coming up, people that you have dealt with, people who maybe have been snakes, maybe people who pry onto your sense of security, onto your sense of money. So that's where the guarded things need to happen. Look at the key. Remember, we were looking for the key, and key is actually showing up here. You are going to pass this lesson with flying colors, as I have told you, in work, in your love life, and actually in the way you communicate with the others. Yes, they're going to be, I have to say, sizable challenges. I really have to say, these three cards together are not easy to start with, and then these two cards become negative when they are surrounded with these cards. So the mountain needs to be surmounted, right? And the mountain is falling in the house of lilies, and lilies is also here in the house of the clouds. So that's that fog. Remember, that's kind of like getting through. That is kind of like finally getting it right. Kind of like the challenges overcome. That's the karmic resolution. That will be that world card. The world is spinning just yet again, and that is falling in the house of the crossroads. So you're getting prepared, you're getting healthier, you are kind of like making the right choices. You know, when you go in the labyrinth and people get lost, but you keep going and keep going, and if for some reason you just go on the wrong side, you always manage to return right to the spot that you actually find a new path. So you're not going to really stray away too much, that's for sure. I really like the fact that you're getting the key in your house of the heart, right? And here the heart is in a house of the stork, right? So this really tells me if you guys are planning to have children, you might actually get more than you want. You might actually not only be pregnant, but also find a partner with a child, or it's going to be some new endeavor. When child shows up, it really means that something from the past is finally resurfacing, like it's kind of manifesting in a really good way. That can be also some kind of like arrival from the overseas kind of a thing, but since the ship is in the anchor house, it's kind of like some level of stability that needs to happen. The key really talks about security and success and a solution, and it's a big wish card of the deck, and it unlocks those doors. Remember, we were looking for the key, and here it is. The key is in your heart. Remember, it is not outside, it is inside, right? So look around for it. There will be people who will actually not want you to find that key. In particular, it could be a woman. She might be in her 40s. She might be somehow influencing what happens at work, and maybe that's going to be the person because of who you're going to decide to leave it, because you'll find that life is too short. This person is, I'm getting sick from this person, and that kind of like sort of a thing that's going to happen. Also, when you have this combination, the key, the cross, and the clover, pardon me, it really talks about important decisions happening. And you know, it's one of those big choices in life. When you look back, it's like that somebody tells you, now go and buy Apple shares. We all wish we can go back 20 years. We can buy Google and Apple shares. We will be billionaires, right? But this is like something that you're going to do that is going to be just that equivalent. You will be at the right place at the right time, and you'll be making the right decision, which is extremely, extremely important. Also, you have the moon and the key, which is linking to that high priestess that you had over there, which is like the third eye opening. You're going to have prophetic dreams because the sun kind of did set, because here is in the house of the coffins. It's all talking about your dreams. It's going to be a really great success. Relationship that you're going to have and the connection you're going to have is going to be clearly soulmate level. It's going to be true understanding of each other, and it's not going to be negotiation or stuff like that. Just like normal daily stuff. Of course you can bicker, like what kind of relationship would be a relationship without this little nagging, right? But it's going to be significant in new change, and significant change in your job, and understanding of mastering your career, key influence. It's just like I'm gonna keep going, right? Because it is very interesting also that this card, this entire Lenormand deck, is basically based on tarot cards, and that's maybe why they look familiar to you. You see, over here, when we see this key, it is basically taken from the High Priestess card, and that's kind of like the moons that we see here. So it is really connecting with you, kind of like embracing the spirituality, embracing that newfound layering that is only accessible to people who are resolving their karma. Whether or not this is abstract term, you did have this card. Do you really think that's a coincidence? And just because everything is working out, I told you, don't lull yourself and think, you know, that's going to last forever. Remember, this was year number 3, and it's also Vunyo, and it's the luck card. And yes, the luck is going to be with us. Also make sure that you don't push your luck. So, okay, Capricorn, let me grab one more card to seal your reading and to send you off until the next year. And I also want to thank you one more time for supporting my channel. This means a bundle to me. And when these horoscopes get released fully, and when the price become a regular price, then I'll be actually donating half of it to different kind of animal supporting societies. In particular, I'm focusing to those that usually come from the countries where that consciousness of animals is still not reached, such as, you know, China, where you have these abused dogs. And there is like one in St. Lucia where there is a project that I'm also eyeing to support. So here is the card for you. Actually, you have two. You have Ghostlands and you have Movement. So let's see what this really means for you. Ghostlands. You can learn from the past and imagine a beautiful future, but you must live in the here and now. Whenever you set your sights too far ahead, you run the risk of losing your footing, for rarely do the present and future match up exactly on the enchanted map that is your life story. The future has no substance right now. It's a place that has no grounding as of yet. You can't live there, yet you can take measured steps toward a goal or dream. These steps are important now. The same goes for nostalgia. You can look into the past wistfully and remember beautiful movements and moments, or revisit lessons learned. However, you can't live there, nor can you go back and change what was. Yesterday is gone forever. Live fully in the present, and the now is the most powerful place to put your attention. Its magic reaches out in every direction, further than the heart and soul can see. It's really lovely. It's also a healing card. And let's see the Movement card, which definitely is going to be lift off, especially in the third quarter for you. So this is what it says. You're in a time of positive forward motion. This is a time for positive momentum as you come out of a period of restriction. You are in a stage of new adventure and discovery. You may feel compelled to take a trip, change your hair, or move your home or business. Regardless, you can't remain where you are anymore. You feel compelled to go forward. No matter what your inquiry, you will see your dreams take form and doors previously shut begin to open as if by magic. Movement is also a state of mind. The fog lifts, remember? And you now know the actions you need to take. This isn't the time for fear. Let it go and move forward. Oh my goodness, guys, this is going to be a wonderful year for you, and you're going to see things and people and relationships in a completely different light. You're going to have that really inner knowledge and not to be kind of like triggered into doing the wrong thing or being guided by the wrong motives. So my dear Capricorn, one more time, thank you very much for your order. It's greatly appreciated, brought from me and from the animals that are going to benefit in the future. And until 2020, I hope to see you on the channel. All the best. I love you.